Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Branding for Success Brand Strategy Workshop. Thank you so much for coming this evening and joining us. We have quite a few attendees, and we have some questions waiting in the wings as well. This is going to be really exciting. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I'd like to start by just introducing myself. I am going to be your host and the interviewer. And my name is Julia Gooch. I am digital brand strategist and partner of Agents of Branding. I've spent 16 years in the full service marketing agency life. I founded She's So Social LLC in 2010 and then joined friends and became a partner of Agents of Branding in 2017. Besides working with small businesses to larger businesses, I also regularly volunteered and advised many regional nonprofits for digital marketing and strategic brand implementation. And now I would also like to introduce Rick Callahan, and he is the founder and CEO of Krative. He's a freelance graphic and web designer at the age of 14. Formed his first business at 22, web design and marketing business, founder of and CEO of Krative since 2010. He was selected Entrepreneur in Residence for the City of New Haven's free public library system in 2019, and that's where I met him. He's consulted with mom and pop startups all the way up through Fortune 500 international brands, and he loves to work one-on-one with passionate business owners. And so welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Julia.
There we go.
There we are.
Here we are.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, that was a fun intro. Thank you for that. My favorite part of that, though, is the very last bullet you had there, working with passionate business owners. And I'm hoping tonight that some of you watching are passionate business owners, and we can work together on your brand strategy. So thank you, Julia.
Yeah, that's great. So I'd like to just dive right in. And I know that when we met and we were talking about branding and having those types of conversations, also when I watched you actually do the workshops in person, I think maybe the first question is, what actually is a brand?
So we're diving right in. That's good. Yeah, so a brand is more than a logo. I like to start there. I have clients who call us or I meet with, and they go, what is a brand anyway? That's where I start. Some folks go, what? A brand is really, my definition, a brand is a promise kept, right? And to me, a brand is more about who you are and the value you portray to those you serve. Hey, Barb. Then it is just the identity or the logo of your entity, your organization, your business. So a brand is a promise kept in my eyes.
Yeah. So with that being said, right, if a brand is a promise kept, then that means that there's some core principles involved. And what are the building blocks? What's the foundation that we build off of when we're talking about the brand?
Yeah. So you said the core principles, and that relates very much to the language I use with clients when we're talking about their brands and identifying what they stand for. So we call these core values.
Okay.
When I meet with people in person, Julia, you got to see this firsthand.
I did, yeah.
Stack of dozens and dozens of cards with certain adjectives, sometimes some verbs on there. And the idea is I spread these cards out, these words out in front of people. And while they're looking at these words, I ask them about what is it that their business or the organization that is different than any other business that does the same thing, because it's not so much about what you do or even necessarily how you do it. It's about why you do it and who you're serving, right? So there's some motivating factors to the person or persons that represent that brand, which I call core values. And those words, when they look at those various words in front of them as we talk about why they get up every single day and go back to work, if it's a startup, it may not be very easy. It may not be the most profitable thing at this point, right? Or if it's an established business and you have layers of hierarchy in your organization, you might feel like you're missing some of the narrow perspective of the motivating values of why your organization does what it does. And so branding, brand positioning, brand strategy, all these assets and elements really stem from those core values and why somebody does what they do and to serve those that they serve. And I actually have my iPad set up over there. I can kind of show you a little bit what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that would be great.
Switch the camera over to that real quick.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
So can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
All right, so what we're looking at here is just my iPad, and this is random notes that I'll pull up in front of people sometimes, and it's more for illustrative purposes when I don't have those cards in hand. Now, we can talk about what you do as a business or as an organization. That could be the products you sell. It could be a service you offer. What do you do? It's the very basic element of a business model, right? People will tell me, and I'll take notes, blah, 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 blah. To me, this is almost like the least important thing. So we're going to kind of skip past that. The next thing I'll ask them is, well, what really provides value to your customers or your target markets, right? What makes you unique to those that you serve? How do you provide value to them? And this is where people will often tell me about their process, right? Or the very unique people that they serve. They're not focused on a very broad demographic. They're focused on people who have particular needs. This way, they convey a very particular value proposition to those they serve. So that's good, right? So now we're getting to something that actually makes them seem a little bit different from company B. But the next question I'll ask, and again, I'll try to have these words out in front of them, is why? Why do you do what you do? Why do you do what you do? Why do you serve those that you do? And usually, this is where people get very, very passionate. I'll often see that it's not just what you do that makes them passionate. What makes you passionate? It's more the way they do it and who they are serving, right? So when we talk about somebody being very passionate and excited about their brand or their organization and the ways they do things for those that they do it for, I'll have probably close to 60 or 70 words in front of them on a table. This is just a very small sampling. And while they're talking through these core values, the things they believe in or why they do what they do, we'll notice that certain words come up over and over for them. So it might be authentic, it might be quality service or product, right? It might be for them that they're really trying to be honest and act like a partner, right? And then what you see here is not just the product or service, but you see the person or the core values behind the person and what motivates them to do the business the way that they do. Does that make sense, Julia?
It makes a great amount of sense.
Right.
And we're definitely seeing, a profile coming out, right? So it's like, it's really starting to be, okay, you know what, this looks very unique.
So just to kind of add to what you're saying there about a profile that's unique, when you are a company that's been around for a while and you're starting to have competitors show up, if you were doing pretty well for a while, you want to stand apart. You don't want to be seen as the same as all the other competitors that are there. Now, I'm not saying be unique for the sake of being unique, right? That's not important enough to really stand apart, right? That's not going to last. You need something that is going to last and motivate, inspire an organization, not just the CEO and not just the salespeople who are going to articulate the value of a product or service, but the entire organization. They truly have to kind of drink the Kool-Aid, sorry for the bad metaphor, but they have to truly believe why they're doing provides value to those they serve. And so when you have these words, these core values that really define what you stand for and who you're serving, you really get an idea of how you stand apart from your competitors. So to me, branding is less about brand strategy specifically, is less about how you identify yourself. It's how others are going to identify you amongst a mix of perceived competitors, whether you believe they are that or not. So I'm gonna go back to the iPad and show you something else on there real quick in relation to that.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
So if we go here, this could literally be the same company that we're talking about, Acme Co. or whatever, right? And depending on your core values and why you do business the way you do and who you serve, it's either going to be this top, way that you look at this, or it might be the bottom one, right? And if you notice, the A or B language that we utilize here is different depending on the core values and your positioning in the market space for your brand, right? So you might see your product or service that you offer as, let's get rid of this. Let's say that you believe, here's some over here, your product or service is really about quality, okay? And we don't want to come off as cheap. Cheap is bad. That's the other guys, right? So it's really about the functional dynamics of how your brand positions against perceived competitors in the market space. On the flip side, let's say you're not about quality as much or cheapness. Maybe you're more about a different way to say cheap, affordable, right? And you might be here. And the antithesis of quality from that person's perspective, based on their core values and perspective, is going to be complex instead of quality. They might see there's too much being offered, too many options, or too much to worry about, or whatever it is, right? And so you could see how your brand positioning, which is a major component of your core values and perceived placement in the market based on your target markets, is going to really be shifted based on the way you have certain core values and how you position them in the market space.
Yeah, and you had mentioned something that I think is very important when you're thinking about the brands and how you're thinking about the different qualities where you're talking about your target audience. Because I think if you don't have a handle on who your target audience is, it's very easy to, if you're going back to all of those words, to say, I'm all of this for everyone.
Oh yeah. And like, how much real value is there if you're trying to be all things to all people? In my bio in the beginning of the video here, you had one of the bullet points was, I started as a freelancer at the age of 14 or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to be a designer of all things for all people, as long as they were willing to pay me, darn it, right? And that's where a lot of folks probably started, certainly where I started as a younger person. And a lot of folks that I work with that are more in the startup phase and ideation phase of their business planning and building one out, they really aren't sure how to narrow down or niche down on a certain market segment, or to really decide what drives them to want to do this thing in the first place. Because that's going to be your long-term strategy, right? If you can figure that out. For some folks, myself in particular, that is through a process of elimination of hard lessons learned, right? And I think one of the bullet points in there was I had a website marketing business before Krative. I would say that was a success, even though technically it kind of flopped towards the end and then relaunched into Krative in a very strong way here. Okay, so we got a question from Joey. It says, okay.
We got there was a couple of different questions that I popped in, but I think I wanted to segue actually into what you were saying as far as when you are a startup, right? Because a lot of times when startup, perfect opportunity to really start thinking about the brand. And this particular person is asking, how do you decide on how much financial investment, or we could call it risk, to commit to early stages of a new venture? And what are basic guidelines and principles here? But I think part of answering that question, right, is like, what is the strength of the brand? Like, of how, when you're determining, the financial risk, it's basically, what are the questions that you're asking yourself as far as, do I have my target audience set up? Do I have is the why there that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think I see a few factors there when you're trying to figure out that investment up front. So B, in Connecticut, the financial investment sounds like it's a bigger concern for you in this question here in starting a new venture and looking for some basic guidelines of, I'm guessing, how much should you have saved up before starting a business? Everybody I talk to has a different answer to that. Personally, I bootstrapped all of my endeavors, right? So bootstrapping is essentially you don't really have anyone giving you any money. You don't have any customers to start with, and you're just kind of self-funding. And if you can get a customer to put some money into business, you reinvest until you have something that becomes cash flow positive. So that's a little bit further away from the brand strategy side of things here. But I do think it ties in the sense that there is value that has to be offered that people are willing to pay for, to be able to feel confident enough to go out on your own and do a business full time and not have other revenue sources. So when I started my first business, I had a full-time job and I was moonlighting, trying to get that business off the ground. I had a few freelance clients here and there, no recurring revenue. And it was, peaks and valleys all day long, right? It was feast or famine. And I was really happy when I had what I would now consider much smaller projects. And it was more about being able to build a reputation of myself and what I offer of value to certain clientele and letting them see that they can refer me and my company to others and encouraging them to do so. Based on whatever value they perceived in what I offered. In my mind, I thought I was offering web design and graphic design and logo design and business card design and blah, 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 blah. In their mind, what I've heard since the beginning is that, wow, Rick, you just get it. You really seem to get me and you help me articulate what it is I'm trying to convey to who I'm trying to help or sell to, right? That took me years of listening to my customers over and over to realize that's what I'm doing. Almost the what I do doesn't matter. It's the how and the why and why I'm helping these people and how I'm helping them. That packaged together becomes the value proposition that these other folks are seeing so that they're willing to refer me to other clientele. I get reviews. I can build up my marketing based on that. I can refine my process from there. I hope that helps. B, I saw a comment.
Yeah, B, thank you. That helps. So that's great. Yeah. Good. And then the other thing too, I wanted to kind of go back, and I know there's a couple of other questions kind of waiting in the wings too, because Barb is also saying, and it's the same thing that I really love too, is I love that the why is such a driver of the brand positioning. Because and if you want to speak on this a little bit, that when you're talking about, again, being in business for a period of time and getting caught up in all the minutia of this day-to-day stuff, you really go back to the why, and then that kind of helps you with that, with the strategy and with promoting and with reinvigorating, if you're sticking with that kind of same brand concept.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm wired to look at the why before the details. So I guess that's why I stay on brand strategy personally.
Yeah.
But when I do get into the that flow of grinding through the details and the day-to-day and the administrative tasks and project management and blah, 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 it really is a different mindset at that point than this why stuff and the brand strategy.
Yeah.
So there's a great video by Simon Sinek that I refer to people often, which is Start With Why. It's a TEDx video. It's like 5 minutes long. Julia, clearly you've seen it. I refer this often. I think I actually told somebody about it yesterday or today. And what he's basically saying there is essentially what I started off this program saying, is that it really is less about the what and those details there, because that's shaped by those deeper motivations and that intrinsic inherent value that you portray by what you're doing, and why is what's motivating you to do that, right? And if you can figure that out, that becomes your strategy over the long haul, right? Your what is going to evolve. You're going to pivot the business consistently as things happen. As we've seen lately, most businesses have had to do that.
Yeah.
If you have a strong core value concept and a vision of what your brand strategy is kind of motivated by, then it should be a little easier to stick to what you stand for as a company or as a brand, and to evolve what you're doing, tweak how you're doing it, and kind of take it from there.
Yeah. You know what? You just said another thing that if I can play a video for you real quick, a video question that kind of plays into what you're saying.
Sure.
Can I drop that in?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey Rick, Andrew Massaro here from ADP. Thanks again for putting this event together. My question is, do you think this pandemic is a good opportunity to readjust your company strategy? And if so, how do you suggest going about rebranding while staying sensitive to everything that's happening in the world? Thanks again, Rick.
All right.
Yeah. So we're just talking about that a little bit, right?
Yeah. So Andrew, that's a really good question. There's a lot of layers to that. I want to be sensitive to what's happening now with the pandemic. And I don't want to downplay that. Yeah, this is a great time to, evolve your business, because it can be, but for sure, this is certainly a very important thing that's happening in the world right now. And when this pandemic started becoming more of a reality to those of us here in the US, the first thing I was trying to do was reach out to all of my clients as much as I could. I sent an email blast to just say, how are you? I'm here. If you want to have a free chat, just let me know. 15 minutes, we can do that, right? And thank you, other Andrew. The concept really is to just be open to interpretation on what dynamics are shifting in the world, and obviously be sensitive to the reality of how those are affected by the pandemic, for example. And if you have strong convictions and your brand is positioned well, you should be able to pivot accordingly in what you're doing, right? So for Krative's example, being able to reach out to all my clients immediately as soon as I could, right? With a video going, hey, please reach out to me if you need to. And I did. I had lots of clients that I haven't heard from in months, some years, that have reached out, and we've re-engaged again. And some of them drastically pivoted their businesses and their business models from like having a physical location to doing, socially distant services outside of people's homes, and like just shutting down an office and working remotely and helping them navigate that in terms of how to communicate to their internal audience and their external audiences. So for sure, it's a great opportunity to evolve. But I believe regardless of how good or bad something might be that really shakes up the circumstances around you, there is a consistency to those core values again, and how you position your brand and that strategy. And then the what and the how can just kind of go along and evolve with it more naturally.
Yeah.
Great question. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great question. We're about almost halfway through the hour. And so I'm going to throw a couple of softball questions and then dig back in. So this is one of them. And it's more about design, right? Because it goes back to when you're thinking about a brand and you're trying, this is from Joey in New York, he's looking for tips to grab someone's attention when designing a logo for your brand, right? So when this is like, you're trying to capture your audience, and what's that, quick thing that that's going to grab somebody who has maybe a very short attention span. Yeah.
So Joey, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a good question, because this is one I actually get a lot, almost as much as a brand anyway. So to have a logo that grabs someone's attention, there is certainly stuff you can do that will grab attention, right? But the idea in my mind is not so much to just steal someone's attention and go, look at me, pay attention, listen, buy my stuff. It should really be, hey, those who really care about what I'm offering here, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
Come along, right? It's a much softer sell. And it's the difference between doing like what I would call ethical marketing versus like blatant advertising, corruption-based advertising. So commercials on TV and radio, right? it keeps those programs alive. It's fine. But it's interruption, right? And how often do you get up and go away from the television if an ad comes on? Or when YouTube has a pre-roll ad that's not relevant to you, you skip as soon as you can, right? Now compare that to you're searching for something on the internet. You have a very specific question about something you want to do. I don't know an example, but something you're looking for, or you need an answer for. And even though somebody paid to have that answer show up, the fact that it's so relevant to you and specific and answer questions, and they're not actually hard selling you on anything, really shows that they're doing more of the marketing and core values and providing a value to the target market. And so to like bring this back to a logo that grabs your attention, when somebody calls and says, hey, I need a good logo, my question is, why? Right? You dive deep into that. And this is a good way for me to like get rid of clients that aren't going to really get my approach. Who just want something quick and attention grabbing. That's fine. We can probably do that, but we're probably not best suited for just a quick attention grabbing logo. We're better served on the creative side to do a more long-term relationship-based brand positioning and strategic communication of your value proposition through your brand identity. So what that means, Joey, is that a brand identity is more than the logo. It is a culmination of all of the experiences of that organization or that product or that service, whether you've worked with them or not. So it could be that Google search and something popped up, whether it was paid or not for it to pop up. That's your initial impression of them. To talking to someone on the phone, asking questions. How much are they answering questions, or how much are they pushing you into a sell, right? How much are they offering perspective, or how much are they kind of cornering you and making you choose something? So to me, branding and strategy for brand identity is more about knowing who you serve, what value do they seek or need. Some folks might come in thinking they need something or want something in particular.
Right.
Really, your job is to give them perspective and to answer a certain question based on whatever problems or symptoms they may have, to let them go, maybe I should check this out a little more, ask a little bit more, right? And they engage you more. So with that logo question, you can do simple things: bright colors, flashy, really red and yellow stuff, driving down the road. Who's that going to be? McDonald's, right? It's going to be out. But then everybody else follows along. Every other fast food joint and whatever store that wants to grab your attention can do the same trick. And then at some point it becomes static. It doesn't stand out, right? Trying to stand out so much amongst the sea of everybody standing out, you suddenly blend in. And so it really is not so much about trying to pop out based on visuals only or based on one tactic, but more having a strategy that is inherent and core to who you are and why you do what you do.
And a logo is really like the start of one of the entry points, the start of a larger conversation, both from the perspective of how you're talking about the brand, right? Which is what you just said. It's like, I want a logo, and it's like, oh, you want much more. Like, let's dig a little deeper, right?
Just a little, yeah.
So just a little bit. Two, when somebody sees a logo, the things that they start thinking about when they see that logo. And then it starts going into what, again, like you said, what the core values are.
Right.
When I think about a particular logo, I'm thinking like, gosh, they make good product, or they provide an excellent service, or something like that. And you start, your brain starts going into these things. So you were talking about how you work in the agency that you own and how you create. From the perspective, this is another question that's coming in, from the perspective of the business owner. And I thought this was a really good question too. And they say, what are the signs that a small business owner should start delegating their marketing to an external company, bringing somebody in to start creating that brand for them?
Yeah, so there's a lot of assumed pieces to that question. I remember this question was one of the ones that came in earlier before the program.
Yeah.
So there's a longer context there, but I believe what Andrew S. was saying there was that do-it-yourselfer type business owner, right? Was that this one?
Yeah, I think that was the one.
Yeah, so do-it-yourselfer type business person might be excited, especially with a program like this, to go, I can do all this stuff. Yeah, let's do it, right? And then when do they know? What are the things that might happen? What sort of events or triggers might there be to go, I should probably delegate some of this, right?
Yeah.
My experience is that those who do this sooner tend to, not every time, tend to, and by do this I mean those who delegate aspects of their marketing sooner allows them to succeed in their long-term strategies of growing their vision for their business or achieving their vision for their business. And what I mean by that is, in order to delegate effectively, you truly have to communicate to those outside of yourself that value proposition for the target markets that you serve, right? And if you can do that well and effective, whether it's an external company or someone you have in-house, an intern, right? Somebody who you pay a minimum wage, who's learning on the job, if they get it, if they're there with you, if they're connecting on those core values and they really live and breathe what you're trying to accomplish and who you're helping, then you're doing legitimate marketing at that point. You're not manipulating people into buying stuff at that point.
Right.
And you're delegating, right? And again, I want to reiterate, whether you're doing that internally, in-house, or externally to an agency like ourselves, the sooner you do that, the better, because the whole point is to really know it, to get it, and to be able to move on from it of yourself. And let others replicate that culture of what you stand for and offering that unique value to those that you're serving. And now some tips, like some pointers of why you might do this to a company like us. You hate it. You hate it in marketing because it's so time consuming to do the digital aspects, for example. We have a lot of clients who come to us for a website, and they know that their website does not reflect in any way their real world representation or reputation of what people know them for and how they know them, right? They get referral after referral after referral. The website is static. It's just like a brochure that was put up 10 years ago. They haven't touched it, and they hate thinking about it. That's a great time to make sure that when people are trying to validate who you are, if they don't truly know you yet already, if they've heard of you or if they're being referred to you, they're going to research you. And you might want to make sure that aspect of your marketing is up to speed and conveying your core values and your brand positioning more in sync with what you have going on in the real world. And then there's like just, the amount of work there is to maintain when doing advertising campaigns, maintaining social media, doing email marketing, having funnel strategies implemented into your different campaigns you have going on, right? There's a lot of aspects, PR, getting the press involved, getting written up, getting articles published, all that stuff. So anytime you want to do those, and if that's not your wheelhouse, hire.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So that's a good, interesting question to, again, from the perspective of like the tasks of marketing and how it relates to, again, going back to the core, the brand, the brand. Yeah.
Yep. So it looked like we had a couple other questions coming up when
we do. There was like a bunch of them actually that are coming up on the comment section. So this is kind of a long one. I'm going to try to get through this one. So you had talked about radio, and Ezra had asked, what's a good time frame for a radio ad, and what's the best way to make it as compelling as possible? And he's talking about, again, tactical stuff, background music, the narrator, the selling points. Again, people are asking about drawing people in.
Yeah. So Ezra, good question, especially on a very specific tactic in an advertising campaign. Typically, what will happen with a radio ad, that's usually part of a larger campaign that is trying to convey a certain message to certain folks, right? And usually who those folks are and what message they need to hear that might be of relevance to them is going to be the driving factor behind making it compelling. So in other words, you're not doing it like, let's say, Ezra, you have an ad you want to put out there. You're not necessarily putting your words out that you like to hear with the music that you're interested in. You should be putting out the words that they understand, that relay what you're trying to say, with music that they can relate to or evokes a certain emotional resonance that the message should convey. So if you're trying to be upbeat and exciting, you might have a song in the background that conveys that with a faster rhythm and happier sound. And the language you use is going to be based on their wording. So random anecdote, but I've worked with a few folks in the insurance industry in the past, and these are smaller agencies, most of them. And one thing that they consistently ask about is, why does no one seem to understand when I say auto insurance, what the heck I'm talking about? Well, if you talk to those you're actually talking to, if you're going for the 20 to 30 something year old person, they don't say auto insurance. They say car insurance, right?
Right.
So they might not even put it on the radio. They might put it on Spotify, right? They might put a Hulu ad or something.
Or Alexa or something. Yeah.
Alexa, right. So make it relevant placement to where they are and make the language, the wording, match who you're speaking to in their language. So I hope that helps, Ezra. Good question.
Yeah, that was a good question. So this is interesting too, and I think this is also kind of a good segue point. Do you offer any services for small businesses starting up? And I guess, like, what would that look like? That's a really good question. What would the thing be that you say, okay, this is, you're starting up, new business, new brand.
Mm-hmm.
What does that process look like?
Yeah, so locally, I got the fortunate experience to be the entrepreneur residence at the library, as you know, Julia, in the library system here. And that was, I say it's fortunate because I got to work with a lot of very passionate, excited people who are really just getting started. A lot of those folks are in the ideation phase. They don't really have a working concept. It's really like pre-Shark Tank idea, right? So if you're going to go into Shark Tank, you don't even have any of your presentation ready. You just know the punchline. Yeah, it's going to be like Uber for cats or whatever, right? So I'm talking to these folks, and it's really exciting, and they're really motivated. But the service they think they need at that point isn't a website. It isn't an advertising campaign. It isn't social media. It really is going to be more just defining and coaching with them, but defining their business model, right? And the strategies they should probably consider that will drive them towards having a more, basically a business plan that's going to be more efficient to kick off a minimum viable product or service. So to answer the question, Andrew, more specifically, is coaching and consulting is really the biggest thing that I think we offer as a company with Krative to the startup. I have a lot of folks who are just getting started, who've been around for a year or two maybe. They're really figuring out, like, I don't do all things for all people. And my job to coach them is to help them figure out and narrow down what is that value proposition for them, right? And to then decide with them, what are their core values? And then to figure out, who does this seem to be serving? In their words, how do they communicate it? So that's one aspect of helping the small business and startup. And the other is locally, we were offering and have been offering an accelerator program, which is got to be reformatted. We used to do this in person. We would have one organization or startup a month. It has to be less than a year old. And this was focused on Connecticut to encourage growth and entrepreneurship. We would do greatly reduced and grants awarded once a month to these startups to come in for it's like a 2 to 3 hour session. And in those 2 or 3 hours, we do figure out those core values with that deck of cards. We figure out the target markets. And by the time they leave, they have an initial marketing or sales piece to get them started. For some folks, that's actually been a logo and a business card. For other folks, it's been a website with a couple of web pages that articulate their value proposition so they can get out there and get launched, right? So that's something else we're reconfiguring now for this more digital time frame.
Right, doing your pivot.
Yeah, my pivot, yeah. But definitely helping these folks figure out those core values, the value proposition, target markets, and coaching is a big aspect for them.
So this isn't a question, but this definitely speaks to, again, what your core value is, how you work, and also a passionate business owner. So this is Barb, and she says, I'm working with Rick as part of his coaching program, which is absolutely perfect for me at the stage I'm at with my business. He's gotten me farther in the past 5 months toward my vision than I got in the last 2 years. And, and that's something that really speaks a lot to both your brand and to what a passionate business owner looks like as well, right?
Yeah.
So, like being able to move forward in how they're conveying their business. Can you speak on that a little bit from a
Yeah, and it's a very good perspective there, Julia. Okay. It speaks well to Krative and my work with clients, and especially more so, I think, in my mind, Barb's work to really focus and to niche down and really narrow down on the messaging and brand positioning strategy that she's working with. And it's been super exciting for me to work with Barb in particular, because she is so passionate about helping people. And I think we also relate on certain core values as people, so we get along there. That helps for sure. But she's done so much progress in several months, and as she said here, more than she's done
in 2 years. Yeah, I mean that's like definitely.
Yeah, and really, all we did there as Krative, as me coaching with Barb, it's just helping her focus on a more strategic process of defining her brand and finding where is she coming from. Why does she get up every day and do what she does, right? And when we had that sort of kickoff meeting to figure out those core values, I remember Barb, I hope it's okay to say this, Barb, when we were wrapping up, it got a little emotional. We were very much in sync with one another as far as why she helps and serves those that she serves. And I think that really gave her focus to really think about what does she need to work on right now? What is important? Is she trying to do all these different things? Maybe not. Maybe she's focused on these few things because it really gives her that laser focus of why she's truly doing this, and she's taken off for sure. So
doing some brand therapy there. It's like, really drawing out the things that, the important things of like why you're doing what you're doing. Because this is more than a job, and it's also businesses that if I can just speak for 1 second about, I spend a lot of time doing my business. I'm sure you spend a lot of time doing your business. It's got to be something that you enjoy putting yourself into. And if you can hone in on exactly, focusing on what it is that you do, why you do it, and that sort of thing, it makes it that much more enjoyable too.
Yeah. One thing that I think brought me to asking people the why question over and over is because I know why I do my business, and ultimately is to not just serve myself in having a certain lifestyle that I want. Like that's a huge motivating factor for me personally. But in other jobs I've had, there's always a limiting factor to the effect that I felt that I could have on others and enabling them to produce positive results in the world and personal growth for themselves. So for me, it's like mirroring those aspects that are part of my core values that drives me to be willing to work from, 9:30ish, whenever I wake up to start work, all the way through to the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
Because I am inspired to do it. I do love doing the job I do. Not that it's not stressful sometimes, not that it's not tiring, but it's worth it, And I will say to that too. I've had a few clients that it didn't work out because in those list of cards of words, they couldn't pick anything. Instead, the one they focus on is profit. And nothing wrong with that in general, I think. But there's something wrong for me to work with somebody whose only motivating factor in doing their business or brand is solely profit, because I don't have a way to grasp onto messaging that'll work and convey core values in their marketing, right? So add that in there.
Great. That's wonderful. I just wanted to take a moment out because we have about 15-ish minutes to the hour until 8 o'clock. But we did say, as part of what we were going to be doing, we have definitely covered the core values, what the brand actually is. We answered some questions, but I know one of the things that we were going to cover, and I hope we have some time to do that, is you had said in the content how to build a strategy that can never fail. Dot, completely. So I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, thank you for adding the ellipses and completely. So to reiterate, how to build a strategy that never fails completely.
Completely.
Now, this is, we've touched on this, right? So Andrew, that sent in the video question, kind of triggered this concept here of like, considering the pandemic, right? Is this a good time, an opportune time to evolve a business, to take the opportunity and to capitalize on and work with your brand to grow and position itself and all that stuff, right? That question, excluding the context of that particular question, it really touches on the idea of, if you have a brand positioning strategy that is based on a consistent motivating factor, or core values as I call them, that really means you're making a promise to those you serve. You're making a promise to be consistent to them, to consistently offer a very specific type of value to those you're trying to give it to. So it's not so much about yourself. If you think of yourself the whole time, it's about you making a bigger company, more business, more sales, whatever, you might fall into some traps. You might try too many things. You might fray your attention span a little bit and not niche down enough to really have a laser enough focus to succeed long term. If you make that consistent promise, you have those core values established, then even when the world has a freaking pandemic going on, or, I've had a couple of rough years as well in my business where it wasn't working out so great. I positioned myself to have clients that I wasn't really well suited to serve. I was taking on clients that were much too large when I was still not well oiled enough in the business processes. We had to drop clients and we had to downsize, and it was painful. And I had to lay off some people. It was really tough times, right?
Right.
But even through that process, the people that were let go of, I still talk to most of them. We're still good friends. These are like family, the people I work with, right? And that's not because it's about making more business and sales, and that's great and exciting, but it is about truly serving those you serve and giving value to those folks, considering that promise that you're giving in your positioning in the market, right? And if you know that, regardless of how bad things get, you can always pivot enough, sticking to those values, and move forward from there.
Right. So there's something that's anchoring right there, right?
Yeah.
No matter what happens, you're coming back and you're okay. This is what I do. This is why I do it. This is who I do it for. This is what I stand for, and that's the thing that's going to hold fast. And how brands and companies really kind of stick around for as long as they do, even through. And if you could just talk about, I know this wasn't a question or on the list, but even through a rebranding, right?
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, right? So I will have clients where in our initial consultations, we're talking about a rebrand. Scary, especially for some clients that have been around. Their business has been around for 100 years. They're coming up on a 100-year anniversary. This is actually an example I'm thinking of. A couple, 50 and 100 years.
Yeah.
And it's scary to think, rebrand, wait a minute, but that's going to change who we are. Not really. What a rebrand should do is readjust how you're communicating who you are and that value proposition. So rebrand is really just an evolution of your brand identity and the system around that and how you put that out there into the world and to the different markets that you serve, and make it more aligned with the reality of what's going on now, right? So rebrand truly is about just being more clear and in articulating that value proposition.
Right. And then oftentimes too, what's considered a rebrand is not necessarily a rebrand, right? It's an update. You kind of had mentioned a similar word to that as well. And we had one question, again, back to the logo part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting in a way too, that it kind of fits in. And again, can you talk about a logo system as opposed to a static logo?
Yeah.
I guess that kind of talks about, like, the hierarchy, not only the hierarchy, but the longevity of a logo.
Right. Yeah, the hierarchy. So logo, most people know a logo is, the symbol, like the thing behind me here for Krative, right? That's Krative's logo. There are many other facets that come along with a logo and different contexts in which a logo may be used. Now, if you think of, trying to think of a particular Apple, right? So these guys, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. Apple.
Oh, yep. That we
can. Their logo, if you look at their original history, I think it was like a seal of some kind, like a big orchard, like an apple tree, and like it was an Apple Computer Inc. and like that was their logo then. This is their logo now, right? The logo itself is just a mark which represents the broader brand identity. And within that brand identity, you have a system of elements and different assets that create this brand identity system. So brand identity system is really just a bunch of, I hate to say rules, but it's a bunch of ways in which you represent a product, a service, an offering, a company, an organization, whatever that brand stands for, right? And for Apple, we know that when we see their logo being used in different ways, sometimes it's lit up rainbow for pride, right? Or their original retro look. Sometimes it's like splattered paint, multicolored for like creativity and artistic endeavors when they're teaching children in, I think their their in-store lessons they would do for children.
Right.
They use these different mechanisms and contexts to showcase the logo or aspects of their brand system. It might be graphics that go along with it to articulate different versions or different communications within that brand's context, right? So they're always having a promise of what they stand for just by having their mark. And then the way they show that in very specific context is going to be a part of a larger system. It'd be easier to show examples. I don't have any right now. A follow-up video on that at some point, Julia.
I was going to say, I think we're going to talk about a follow-up video. There's been definitely some questions and different avenues that you can go down with us for sure.
So before we jump into other questions, I do want to remind those of you that are watching live. Thank you for the comments, by the way. This is fun. I like doing the back and forth answers and questions. But we do have prizes that we've lined up. Julia, do you want to mention what they are and tell people when we'll be?
Yeah. So I think a little bit closer to the end, which if we want to finish up within the hour, we're about 6 minutes away. If we want to extend it a little bit, just because there have been so many questions, we did cover so many things, and we do want to talk about the special offer,
which I
as
see
well, that I actually have rolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker.
Yep.
Which also means that I'm doing two things at once right now.
So the special offer, we'll talk about that in a second, but I have the two of the prices here if you want to talk about them.
Yeah, so if you want to put those up. So let's go from the bottom of the top. So there's two books, and one is called The Brand Gap. Do you have those up? I'm in the other screen. Oh, here we go. One's called Meta Skills, and the other one is called The Brand Gap. And keep talking, because these are books that you've mentioned to me before, and you were really excited when the new one came up.
So I actually have only just started Meta Skills, which I'm loving. But these are both books by Marty Neumeier. He has, well, I should say, I have a very similar philosophy that I'm talking about tonight that he seems to have in all of his work. So he's a very, very accomplished brand designer. You've seen his work, I promise. So this book here, The Brand Gap, is actually well known amongst designers and branding strategy folks. I highly recommend this. If you don't read it tonight, I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. Sometimes it's not available, like if you're looking on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever. It might be on back order for a while, but it's definitely worth the wait if you can get it.
Yeah. And so what we have tonight for the prize packages or prizes is a copy of The Brand Gap by Marty Neumeier, and then a copy of the Meta Skills book, and then closer to the grand prize is the book combo of Meta Skills and The Brand Gap. And then the grand prize is 1 hour strategy session and 1 hour follow-up consult, which is a $600 value with Rick from Krative. So, yeah.
So to clarify, that's 2 1 hour sessions. It's a strategy session to start, and then it is a follow-up consultation after to make sure you're doing your homework and making things happen. So this is essentially, it's a sample of the coaching, the larger coaching package that I have, and that's the grand prize for tonight. So I think, Julie, what we'll do, if it works for your timing, is why don't we go about 10 minutes after, just to finish up the questions here. Looks like we have more rolling in. And then we'll do the prizes at the end.
Yeah.
So if you have not commented already, and you have not pre-registered before going live today, make a comment live on this video or hashtag branding for success. That will get you into the random drawing. And then Julia's got a little tool there to pull up the names that kind of randomly drum up.
My little random generation tool.
Yeah, and then we'll pick out the winners in about 12, 13 minutes or so.
Yeah. So just one more admin thing. Can we just talk a little bit about on the bottom what we're offering and where it is? So it's the Branding for Success 2020 little mini session.
Share my screen real quick. So what we have here is, this is an offer just for those of you watching live. Please do not share this outside. Only those who are watching should see this. It is an offer that will go away in about 30 days or so, but I am offering free 45-minute consults. You have to claim your spot. If you're a part of this program, you can do that. So there's about 30 days left to do this. All you have to do is go to the address at the bottom of the ticker here, which is krative.com/brandingforsuccess2020. And you can claim your free spot for a 45-minute consult. We'll do it virtually, of course. And we'll go over pretty much whatever you want to about your brand. And we'll have a very, shorter than a power hour, but it'll be a power session for sure. So definitely claim that offer if it's of interest to you.
And I also put it in the comment section for people to pick up as well for this thing. Okay. Cool. So in these last few minutes, and I'll keep an eye out for other questions as well that kind of will pop up. We did get a thank you from B. Ross Shannon, and you're welcome for having this session. But I know that you really hit on, several really important points. And I guess this last few minutes, how would you really summarize the 3 or 4 points, and then what are next steps for people to kind of think about?
As far as in context to
when they walk away from here, right? And they start thinking about their own brands.
Yeah, so I'm going to assume the folks that are watching most of this are probably not the Fortune 100 companies at this point. Maybe closer towards the ideation, startup, or growing small business.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I would say the main thing is if you're already in business, think about those you serve when you're trying to figure out your brand strategy. Think about those who are your best or ideal clients or customers, and what is it that they say about you, right? It's probably not your wording, but if you think of what you've heard from people who refer you and why they refer you to other people, what is that value proposition that they perceive, and make note of that. That's a pattern that probably is going to come up again and again, and you should probably see how that relates to what you perceive your value to be and how you communicate that to potential clientele or customers going forward. So that first step really is think about what feedback do you get from those you serve already that are more on the ideal side of your customer or client spectrum, not so much the big pains in the butts that you don't want to deal with, and articulate that in their language to others like them.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I think that this also kind of helps articulate this kind of wrap up as well. Because Carlene is asking, what do you believe are the top 3 mistakes small businesses may make or may do when they're doing their branding?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the one thing that is tricky for some folks that are very new when working on their small business or trying to scale is to make it not about themselves. So a lot of folks go into business because they have a job or a hobby that they've made money with, right? Ooh, hey, I did it, right? I was making websites and logo designs and whatever when I was younger, and I just went into business, and great, that's exciting.
Right.
But that's not enough to really say why somebody should work with you other than you're a commodity and others can do what you do, right? So if you're placing the value on just you as the person who does the job that others can do, right? So let's say, I don't know, you work in landscaping, for example.
Yeah.
We do landscaping. I'm the best landscaper there is. You can't articulate anything beyond that, and you can't train others to be the best in landscaping the way you think is the best, then it's about you and not those you're serving. Does that make sense? So if you can realize that it's more about your philosophy of business and providing a better value to those you're trying to give that value to in that landscaping example, maybe there's unique ways that you do this. Maybe you have unique billing methods that allow people to have you there all the time and pay on a consistent basis that is more affordable, whatever it is, right? These methods or these mechanisms and how you do it are repeatable outside of yourself and convey a value to those that you probably are better suited to serve. And then it's no longer about you, it's about those you serve, and you can communicate something more effective there.
Yeah, that was a great question. Great answer to that too, because it really drives home again what makes a brand. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Just repeating that. All right, so we have no more questions.
I think I saw one. Do we have Alan? I saw that big one from Alan up there. What was that?
Was it the same one that was the video or no?
No. Oh, here we go.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Oh, yeah. My apologies. Go ahead.
Randomly specific question. I work for a brand that is deciding whether to white label its product for individual enterprise clients or to centralize the product and have clients participate in its ecosystem, I'm guessing. How would you go about arriving at the right answer for the brand? Wow. This is a very good question that excites me and scares me at the same time, which means thank you, Alan. So I would have to ask for more context on the background of the brand that you work with, and kind of who have they traditionally served and who are the influencers that kind of refer that brand, right? Because that's where the answer is going to lie, not so much leadership at this point if it's more established, and making sure that this target market that you've been serving and continue to serve, I'm assuming, are still going to be the same target markets. Unless the organization has decided to go in a different direction, I'm not sure I understand the context of the very different directions here and why they are opposed to each other right now and posed in this way. So I really couldn't answer it more specifically than that without a little more context, but I would say, again, just to reiterate, it's more about who are those influencers to the brand and who's bringing in the long-term relationships, whether they are the relationships themselves that are coming in and you're selling to directly, or it's somebody who's influencing relationships beyond them and bringing in clientele for that brand. So vague way to answer. Maybe you and I can speak offline about this a little more. And get
that sounds,
very good question.
Moving parts there.
Yeah.
All right, I think we had a couple more questions from Ezra, and they are very kind of tactical questions, and maybe that's also something that can be taken offline. But again, the tactics are very much on an online kind of communication. So do you have any advice on utilizing SEO and meta tags?
So very quickly on SEO, search engine optimization. So this is just making sure that your website or websites on the internet are optimized to show up for searcher intent. So if you think about those who are using Google or Alexa or whatever it is to search the web for something, they have questions, they have needs, right? And the idea is you want to make your pages or sites show up higher in the list when it's the most relevant at the right time for the right people with the right question, as long as you have the right answer. So with utilizing SEO, it's a big no-no to try to trick the system and, top 10 tricks for 2020 to get top of Google. All of it's really fluff. It's really truly about being authentic and making sure you know what is the search intent of the user and what are they looking for when they're looking for it, and do you actually have the answer? You don't want to show up and have them click you. They go to your page, you don't have the real answer. You're just selling them something else unrelated because they're going to leave. They're going to bounce. Your bounce rate's going to skyrocket. If you paid for that click, your quality rating is going to go down. You're going to pay for more, right? It's just bad. So you want to make sure look at the analytics, Ezra. Look at the data. What are people searching for? Check your search console and look for what people are searching for when they find you. Where do you have low bounce rates? And which search results that people type in do you show up for when they click? They actually convert to being a lead or a customer.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be optimizing, what you're optimizing for.
A little detective work in there.
Yeah. And that's stuff that, Julie, I know that you have done some work on as well with these types of workshops. So
yeah,
but
for sure.
Definitely more technical.
We have one more question that came in. This is from Joshua. He says, I am a therapist. I work with individuals, couples, and relationships. I'm challenged with targeting my audience because I work with all three. What do you recommend on how to brand with the situation? Yeah,
that's a really, really common issue, Joshua, and a very good question. So, excuse me. Basically, you have a couple options here, right? If you're finding that these three target markets you're going after are so opposed to one another in the way you present yourself, maybe you should niche down to start with one or two of these groups instead of all three right now. Now, I know it's like, wait, turn away business? Yes. Believe it or not, yes. So you can better serve those you're best suited for. And then you can scale up from there. Maybe, I don't know if you have a team of other therapists that work with you, or if it's just a solo practice, but basically, you want to specialize as well as you can to the target market that you're best suited for. And if one of those three markets, if it's the individuals who have relationship dynamic issues, maybe it's going to blend into all three that way. Or maybe it's always going to be couples and their relationship dynamics, right? So maybe focus that way. The other option is to not pick just one, but to consider what is the commonality between all three, right? Mm. A three-part Venn diagram and you overlaid them. What are the common dynamics and issues that you seem to be best suited for these folks? And again, it's not about how you think you're suited for. It's how do they find value in what you're providing. So I would say do a little of that detective work of your clientele and get some feedback. Try to suss it out as best you can in your line of work. And as far as what value do they get from you, and if those 3 different groups all seem to say a very similar message about your approach, style, or maybe it's like the way you come off sincere, or maybe that you reflect their concerns a certain way, whatever it is, right? You want to convey that. And then you can capture all 3, because it really is then at one point, one bucket of a target market and different people, no matter how many there are, 1 or 2 and a couple or more, right? Relationships in a family, right? You're really serving them in a very similar manner. And those core values are what's driving you to do it in the ways that you do. And they're receiving a very specific value from that.
Wow. Yeah, that was a great question too.
Yeah.
All right. So we are a little after 10 after the hour.
Cool.
And do we feel like we want to
let's give away some stuff.
Let's give away some stuff. So while I'm doing the random generator thing, do you just want to give one more little plug there for the special offer?
Yeah.
I will do the random generator.
Yep, I'll let you do your thing there. So while Julia's doing the tool there, which we had to find, I know. So while she's doing that, at the bottom of your screen, if you haven't already, definitely consider, if you've asked questions, we can go deeper into the questions you've asked or your brand concerns that you may have. Let's go here. So go to krative.com/brandingforsuccess2020 and claim your spot. All you got to do is click that button. You can pick whichever day is best suited for you. It goes right into my calendar. It'll book a 45-minute session where we can pretty much talk about whatever you want. We have some examples listed in here. We can talk about your idea or concept for a business. We can talk about your existing brand and maybe its website and marketing collateral. I love to look at people's marketing pieces and to really discuss, is it effective? Is it working? Is it enhancing your sales or is it detracting from them, right? We can talk about that. We can geek out over brand identity and the brand system you may or may not have. Maybe you just have a logo and it doesn't mean anything to you or whatever, right? Or just in general, we talked about tonight was a lot of brand positioning strategy, right? So knowing who you are, what you stand for, and who you serve, and how you position in the market space. Or some folks just like to show me a pitch deck, and we look at that together, and I give some critique on that. So whatever it is, krative.com/brandingforsuccess2020. Claim your spot. You have about 30 days to claim that, and then it will go away.
Yep, we'll put a little reminder out a few times maybe. Yep. Okay, so it looks like we are ready with the random generator. So I'm just gonna go with, okay, so we're starting with the winner of the brand gap. And that was that book by Ari Neumeyer.
Yep.
And that is going to go to Gong J. So it's Gong, and then last name capital letter J with a capital letter J.
Cool.
So that's the brand gap.
Brand gap. Congratulations, Gong J.
Great. So then we'll move on. And the winner of the Meta Skills book is Bethany. We have Bethany.
Bethany.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Congratulations, Bethany.
Yay! Congratulations. All right. Where are we now? The winner of the book combo. So that's both books, the Meta Skills book and the Brand Gap, and that is going to go to Carlene. Kerlin. Is it Carlene or Carlina? That was one of our new people that we brought in. She had a question. Carlene Jules, Jules.
Awesome. Congratulations.
And then the Grande prize, which is the 1 hour strategy session plus the 1 hour follow-up. So that's 2 separate hour sessions, 2 total. And that goes to Joshua W.
Congratulations, Joshua. So we'll reach out to each of you via email over the next couple of days, few days or so. Oh, there you go, Colleen.
Yeah, make sure that we have your emails. So yeah, because I know that there were some that jumped in on the Facebook Live and jumped in with their questions, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just like to say thank you to everybody who joined us. You guys had some great questions and comments. Really made the conversation quite lively for us. Rick, yeah, I'd like to thank you as well for just kind of going through not only the brand strategy, but again, really letting us understand what a brand is, and then how it is developed, and then how that continues, for a passionate business owner, right?
Who we work with, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Carlene, thank you, by the way, for submitting your email. So if any of you did not pre-register, make sure you get us your email. You can go to the Krative website, email it to us. You can give a call if you'd like. Find a way, Facebook message us. But yeah, Julia, this has been a really fun time. I'm so appreciative that you helped me put on this event. So for those of you still watching, Julia and I were just kind of brainstorming and geeking out over branding and talking about, honestly,
as we do.
At this point, we were talking about COVID-19, and I was going off on the deep end of how brand strategy and positioning really is what's going to keep you focused and moving forward, even during tough times. So, Julia, I just want to thank you. So, Julia from Agents of Branding, thank you so much for hosting tonight. And I am looking forward to doing more of these. So.
I am as well. Yeah. That was just like a really dynamic conversation and very inspirational. So.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. I guess we're signing off here then.
We are signing off. So let's go ahead and pull up the thing here. And thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.